There are many types of developers in the tech industry, but I believe there are 10 things that all developers should know, so let's dive into the list. Let's go. Number 1, if you want to consider yourself a developer, the baseline is you have to know at least one programming language, whether it's a more front-end focused language such as HTML, JavaScript, Angular, React, Vue, Swift, Kotlin, or maybe a more back-end focused language such as Python, Java, or C#. It is really important that you at least become very good with one front-end language and one back-end language, as it makes you more versatile and exposes you to many different parts of building many different types of applications. And with this comes my number 2, which is to learn the best coding fundamentals and any specific best practices that come with the language you choose to learn, whether that's understanding the proper way to reuse code, proper naming conventions, or just knowing how to properly use, the best features of that given language you are learning. If you commit yourself to learning these languages, you want to then try and become as proficient as you can in them, so you have a strong foundation and skills that will always be valuable. Numbers 3 and 4 both have to do with APIs. You first need to know kind of what they are, and they are the connecting piece of code between the front end and the database, and they handle the processing of data or of the user interactions of the front end. And also, number 3 is that you need to now know how to consume APIs, which is something super critical for anyone creating, whether it's a front end UI for a web app to a mobile dev creating an app. Knowing how to consume APIs is critical for being able to send and receive data. Number 4 is very similar, but the other side of the coin. It's that developers need to know how to create APIs that can communicate correctly with the front end, but also be able to properly process data and store and then retrieve it from the database. With number 5, we're going to be changing gears a bit. This is something essential every developer working on a professional project or in teams needs to know, and that is source control, which is the practice of tracking and managing changes to the code. This is done with source control management systems, primarily Git. It can be very scary to jump into, but you just have to rip that band-aid off, because nothing is worse than a developer that does not know how to properly commit changes and ends up breaking things on a specific branch. It is an essential skill and something you use daily when working on big team projects, so you need to be confident and have that experience with it. So don't be scared and learn at least, kind of those basic commands and what they do. There are plenty of tutorials or blogs about Git. You at least need to know kind of what a push and a pull is, creating branches, merging, being able to kind of reset your commit or kind of get rid of something that you didn't mean to commit. And those are just kind of the little things that I recommend you doing, because those are kind of the ones that I use a lot, obviously. And if you want to make it even easier, there are plenty of Git GUIs out there that make the Git, repo very visual and easy to kind of see, and allow you to just do a lot of things easier by dragging or right clicking without having to learn that command. And it helps, because the boring command line and those long commands kind of suck sometimes, so it's much easier, at least for me, when it comes to doing Git, to use my favorite tool, which is Gitkraken. For this, I love it and have been using it for years for personal stuff and also in my day-to-day professionally. So you heard that, Gitkraken, sponsor me already. I'll be waiting. But there are many others like SourceTree or Tortoise, and the list goes on. So you have many options when it comes to Git, but point is, I want you guys to dive in, get comfortable with it, because you will be using it professionally wherever you work. And if you guys are liking this video and want to support me for free, then please hit the like button so that this video can spread to more people, and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future videos. Number 6, this is something that not every company does, but sadly, as a good dev, you should be familiar with it because it is good to know, and that is how to test your code. There are many different ways to test your code, whether it's manual, unit tests, or some automated testing script. You have to be able to have some type of way to make sure that the code that you are writing is covered to the best of your extent, so you can catch bugs before they get pushed out. Usually writing your code to be testable also reduces complexity and forces you to write better code as well, which in the long run saves everyone time and money. Number 7, you at least need to know how databases work and the different types. You need to know the difference between a relational database and non-relational databases. Which I can quickly mention is that relational databases store their information in well-structured tables and rows, with the data always being very consistent, and connections between tables using primary keys and foreign keys. These can be SQL, Oracle, and Postgres. while non-relational DBs usually kind of store their data with kind of a key, and then their value is just a bunch of unorganized data, so in just a JSON format, just as a document, and the structure of that data doesn't really matter because you just kind of pull it by the key. And some examples of these types of non-relational databases are MongoDB, Couchbase, and Apache Cassandra. Number 8 is going to be that you at least have to understand what is the cloud. The present and the future is all about the cloud, but quickly, what is it? The cloud are servers that are accessed using the internet, and that's how you can interact with the software or databases that are running on them. This offloads the cost of keeping physical servers in-house and offloads that to whatever servers you are using or paying for. With that being said, whether it's AWS or Azure, there is so many things you can do on the cloud when it comes to hosting your apps or your app infrastructure, or how many ever different things you can do on the cloud. At the very least, I want you guys to know what it is and why it is continue to be the norm when it comes to a lot of web applications, web development, mobile app development. Number 9 is going to be a skill that they just don't teach you in school, but comes in very handy in the workplace. And that is that you need to be able to properly communicate very technical things to people that maybe do not have a technical background. At my first job, there was many times where I was in meetings with clients and I had to explain to them certain features, or maybe why a certain feature took longer than we thought it was going to take. And you have to be able to correctly communicate to them, oh, it's because there's so much functionality that goes into just kind of figuring this thing out. You don't want the client to just be like, oh, there was a button that you click and then something appears. That doesn't seem like it should be that hard, but in reality it is. So you don't ever want that divide to appear, but you also want to be able to explain it to them in a way they're going to understand, while obviously not being condescending. You want to always be as transparent as possible, and sometimes just do your best to explain in as simple terms as possible, maybe why something is going to take a little bit longer, or maybe why it's not that big of a deal and you're going to get it done way sooner. This trait of just being able to properly communicate very technical things in a simple manner that everyone understands is super clutch, and a lot of hiring managers love it because not all software developers can do it, so it is a huge bonus. And finally, number 10, the most important thing all developers need to know is that you can never stop learning. The second you get complacent and think, oh, I know it all, no you don't. Tech is consistently evolving and changing, and if you don't put in the work to grow and learn, you're going to be as archaic as that programming language you learned in 1999 that you still think is hot and you still want to use in 2022. You don't have to be super duper plugged in, but you do need to do your best to kind of check out every 3 to 6 months. I don't know, click around, check out for new updates to languages that you may use, any new hot trendy frameworks that may be kind of popping in to kind of the professional scene. It's not about knowing it all, but just being aware that things are changing and knowing that you don't want to get complacent, because you want to make sure that you always have relevant skills that are currently being used in the tech industry. And if you guys enjoyed this, don't forget to drop a like. And if you are curious, well, I know the basics now, but what exactly do I need to know to become a backend developer? Well, check out this video right here.